Welcome to New Jersey Now. I'm Brenda Blackman. Today,
when you call the NJ-FMBA greedy to all the people and to our kids, you're calling us greedy.
Go down and tell them you don't like the image they're portraying for teachers across New Jersey. And complain to me about it.
a war of words breaks out at a recent town hall meeting between Governor Christie and a New Jersey teacher, but is it his stance on the teachers' union and cost-cutting that has thrust his name into the national spotlight as a presidential nominee? And then the heat turns up on cutting the federal deficit. It's an issue some say was pivotal in the midterm elections and why voters handed control of the House back to the Republicans. We hear from some in the Garden State about possible solutions. But first, the battle over property tax reform. One of the big hurdles was passed this summer in the form of a 2% cap. But Governor Christie says lawmakers need to adopt his toolkit or local towns will be in trouble. Two of the biggest reforms in the kit are arbitration and civil service reform.
All these reforms are about making New Jersey more affordable and more successful. You didn't hire me to say, we'll get to it. Don't worry about it. We'll eventually get to it. You keep paying property taxes that have gone up 70% in the last 10 years. Don't worry. Keep doing that. We'll get to it.
It's been hyped as what's going to save taxpayers money. It's going to make governments run. It's going to make it easier for governments to run, but it's not going to save the. It's not the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Property taxes have certainly been an issue for many New Jerseyans. Among them have been seniors living on a fixed income. Sharon Crowley spoke with some of them in the community.
I want to know what your biggest concern is as a homeowner here in New Jersey.
Taxes mostly. Because they keep on going up. We're only on a fixed salary. I mean, our Social Security hasn't been increased in 2 years. If the taxes keep on going up, that means our spending power is getting less and less. What do? Give up medicines?
I'm really praying for this man that he does. He does really help New Jersey the way he promises.
Joining me now for more, Mayor Eldridge Hawkins, Jr. of the City of Orange, and William Lavin, who is president of the Jersey Firefighters Mutual Benevolent Association. Thanks to both of you for joining us. I want to know your positions, though, on the proposed reforms on arbitration as well as civil service. First with you.
Well, I certainly believe that some reforms are in order. What we are very concerned about is this 2% hard cap. I think it places municipalities in very difficult positions, and the number one priority for municipalities should be government is to keep people safe. And this the 2% cap really is not realistic in providing for the amount of safety. We have staffing levels across the state of New Jersey that members of my organization in the fire service and the police are hard-pressed now to keep people safe. And we see threats of layoffs across the state of New Jersey, which are going to have dire consequences, clearly.
And Mayor, your position?
Well, I think first we have to note that our unions work hard, our employees work hard, and certainly that has merit. And during different economic times, I think that the situation might be different. But the reality is that there is a 2% cap, and in order for the municipalities to comply with that, we need certain reforms. We need to be able to keep our services on par with where they should be. We need to be able to keep boots on the ground, and we can't do that without the appropriate reforms.
And of course, you're in a unique position, of course, after having taken leave as a police officer to serve the community of Orange. Did collective bargaining actually help you when you were active on the force?
Well, I think it does. I think that there is a necessity for binding arbitration because police and fire can't strike. So I'm not suggesting that we remove binding arbitration, but the cap on taxes of 2% must be in simpatico with the awards that the unions can give or receive from the arbitrators. Because if we have a flat-funded department of $10 million and they go and get another $1 million worth of increases, we then have to lay off and demote to fund those additional increases.
And speaking of that funding, I mean, if you have towns that are bringing in less revenue, but expenses remain the same, then and going up, and when it comes to salaries, could that lead to operating problems, and of course, for operating problems for municipalities?
Well, most certainly it does, because the reality is that in order for us to keep paying the more senior officers more or employees more,
where are you going to get the money?
Yeah, where are we going to get the money?
Bill, where are you going to get the money?
Well, I think we recognize that. Firefighters and police officers have taken pay freezes in 1 to multiple years. What we are concerned about, this 2% hard cap, inclusive of health benefits and pension, will guarantee not that firefighters would receive a 2% increase, and that's the max you would receive. We're guaranteeing pay reductions is what we're talking about. So the taxpayers need to be clear. The firefighters and the police officers where health benefits is critical, and that has been a discussion about whether they should have to pay into their health benefits. When we're asking members of the police and fire service to go into homes and be under just about every disease that's known to man and put themselves in harm's way, contract things like cancer, and then we're going to tell them now that government's not going to be there to take care of them and their families, I think is irresponsible. And I think any reasonable thinking person would agree that if we're going to ask people to go into battle, we better be there for them when they do get injured in those situations.
Now, Bill, earlier this summer, Harry Martin sat down with the governor and asked a question that you had for him, which basically he said, how can the governor justify budget cuts that would sacrifice the safety of the people? We want to hear what his response was.
Right.
Bill Lavin is irresponsible, and he's a fearmonger, and he does that to put money in his own pocket and the pockets of his members. Can I say it any plainer than that? I love firefighters, and they do a great job, and they put their lives on the line. But let me tell you, public employees getting 4 and 5% increases in the middle of a recession, paying little or nothing towards their health benefits, is something that the people in the private sector who have lost their jobs and lost money in this can no longer afford to pay for. So, you know what? No one's going to die. No one's going to die because of this, and Mr. Lavin should be ashamed of himself.
Bill, are you a fearmonger? Are people going to die?
You know what's interesting about almost nothing that the governor said in that clip was accurate or truthful.
So you're calling the governor a liar?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, in Trenton we call that disingenuous, but the governor stated there that nobody's going to die. Shortly after that was aired, you, in fact, had a report about 4 individuals dying in a house fire in Patterson, almost minutes after he said that. Every day, as a firefighter in Elizabeth, I have people dying in my arms across the street from headquarters in Elizabeth and across the state. Our firefighters are watching people in gun battles who are not being, we don't have the police on the scenes in these cases, and we are not advocating. So when the governor speaks that nobody's going to die and he says it smugly, it's unbelievable. It's irresponsible. It's problematic, and there's no question.
I think that public safety is key, and we always have to be mindful of that. And while there are always concerns that we have to be dealing with, the reality is this is about dollars and cents. And if there is no money, we don't have machines that we can just print this stuff up in our backyards. We have reality to deal with. The governor took $3.5 million, or approximately $3 million from the city of Orange, as he's done from many other municipalities. In our city, that's a 10% increase before you even address standard increases associated with gas going up, insurances, contractual increases.
Okay, let's talk solutions. Could one possible solution be shared services?
I believe so, and I think we've looked into that. There are places in the state of New Jersey where we're equipment rich and manpower poor. We have a glut of equipment being purchased, but not enough firefighters. And solution-wise, I think rather than on a local level, the local unions quarreling with local mayors. The one thing I think that we're in agreement here is that the problem is coming from Trenton. The governor has put these municipalities in such a bind, and now he sits back and he watches the local mayors in some cases and the local unions squabble amongst themselves as to who's going to be laid off and how they're going to deal with this problem.
Speaking of the squabbling, there was one bill, of course, that was tabled in the Assembly on arbitration. What about that one?
Well, because it was tabled, I believe, because the municipalities needed a hard cap. We cannot allow for 3% awards, 4% awards, which are reality much higher than that once you factor in longevity pay, regular step increases. This system is not sustainable. We need realistic reform, civil service reform, for example, that would allow the administration to choose to lay off, if need be, a senior employee who's not performing that may be earning $100,000 to save an employee or 3 employees that may equal that same amount of money.
Yes or no answer. Would either of you support that bill?
Well, what I hear the mayor...
Yes or no?
No.
I would most certainly support a hard cap.
Okay.
Sounds like the mayor wants to, after you're done with your career and you've given to the community, now it's time to send you off to pasture. And that's not how we treat our men and women of our armed forces, nor should we treat the men and women of our police and fire
I don't think the way to
departments.
treat them is to allow the city to unwind itself because we don't have the men on the ground to actually fight these battles. We cannot have a select few making all the money and lay off all the junior men. Somebody has to deliver service.
Thank you both for joining us.
Next, the buzz